Welcome to CS 112, Lesson 13.5, Spirals. This is made for the University of Idaho Dual Credit 112 class. So today we're going to be talking kind of about spirals, but really we're going to be talking about radians and kind of starting to use some of these prior concepts that we've been learning over this last unit and being able to kind of make kind of cooler programs. What our ultimate goal is to make what we have up here on the screen right now. Like this is what you're shooting for whenever I say this is what you're going for in your assignment. You're trying to make something that looks something like this. So let's get started. Sorry about that. So until now, we've been using degrees whenever we're working with circles. Why? Because that's kind of how we're first taught about circles. We're like, hey, a circle is 360 degrees. Why do we do that? Because it's a whole number, and whole numbers are really easy to grasp. But in reality, whenever we're talking and processing, we're talking in radians. We have to be able to convert over to these radians. And so, because that's how processing works. And so, having this specific demonstration, or not really demonstration, having this specific chart is really helpful in helping determine kind of what we're going for. So, kind of big ones that we need to know for today is this 0 or 360. So, kind of where we first start is either 0 or 2 pi, and it's that all caps 2 with an underscore, all caps pi. The other one that we're going to be working with is this 30 is pi over 6. We'll kind of talk a little bit more on how you can actually adapt this even more to make it like work for you even better if you want something more precise instead of just trying to do 30-degree angles. So let's go ahead and try this program. And you're going to be using this program, so it is important that you copy this down so that then you kind of see how everything works. So we're going to avoid this setup because we're not expecting it, and we're not going to tell it to return anything. What would it return it to? The only thing that calls it is the program itself. So we're going to have a size 300, a size 300. I'm going to have a stroke color of 0, 0, 255. And a stroke weight of 2. So far, so good. No errors yet. So now I void draw. And if I go too fast, definitely take some. Whenever we finish, feel free to pause it and make sure that you can type it in. So background of 255. Let's make it all white. And we're going to have an integer that we call radius. And let's set that equal to 75. As a reminder, you can definitely set the value that you want your variable to be whenever you first make it. Let's make a for loop. And in this for loop, we're going to make an integer called angle, and we're going to set it equal to 0. And then for loops, remember, expect there to be a variable, what to check for, and then how you kind of change in order to, like, what the change is after each time it's run. So we're going to go angle is less than or equal to 360, and then the angle, we're going to plus equals 30. And what that does, again, is it adds 30 onto its prior, onto what angle was before, and it sets angle to be that number. So if I had 30 and then I plus equals 30, it'd make it 60, and then I'd have 90, and it kind of, hopefully you can see where that's going. Let's make a float x, and we're going to set it equal to the width divided by 2 plus the radius times cosine. And whenever when we're talking processing in order to do kind of a circle needs everything to be in radians. And what we set up here is actually degrees. And so there's actually a way of being able to convert, and that's pretty helpful whenever we're talking about user input. So let's go radians. We're going to set that equal to, or we're going to set that to be the angle. So we're going to change the angle into radians. Let's do the same thing with the y. Float y equals the height divided by 2 plus the radius times the sine of radians angle. And finally, let's make an ellipse. Because we did all those calculations, we're going to use them. We're going to use our x, we're going to use our y, and let's make little tiny dots. What this is going to do is it's going to make a few dots for us. close this, and I push the little play button and show you this. And so this is what it looks like. So I got like some circles going around kind of in a circle. All right, pretty cool. Now, the kind of annoying part of this entire program that we're doing is this part right here. Hopefully you can kind of imagine how easy it would be to accidentally leave off radians. And I kind of told you whenever we were first typing it, um, having this radians command is really helpful in terms of in case the user that we have is able to type in a number and they're typing in something like 30 degrees. So then we know, hey, we need to change this over to radians. But because we're making the program on our own, we can actually make it more efficient, which is really big whenever we talk about computer science. We don't want to bog down the computer with unnecessary calculations. So let's try and make these calculations a little bit easier. So let's get rid of the radians, and let's just, for the computer, save the computer a little bit of memory space here throughout like all time. Let's go ahead and change these to just be angle. And let's change these angles to be the different radian terms. So angle less than or equal to 2 pi, remember all capitals. And then let's change this one to be pi divided by 6. So everything's looking pretty good. I'm going to push the play button and nothing. Now, it's not a mistake on my part. I actually meant for you guys to not be able to, for it to not show up. Why didn't it show up? That's kind of the big question. So let's look through our program. Why? The only thing that we changed is that we made radians, and we changed uh, this to be a variable. You'll see down here we don't have any errors popping up, but ultimately the thing that we're trying to show isn't showing. It was just working, and this is kind of a big thing with computer programming: is build something that works, and then you can start making changes. So the question is, what went wrong? There's no syntax error. It would tell me if there was a syntax error. So that must mean it's something semantically almost. Take a look at this code. Can you figure out where it's not working or what's causing it to not work? Take some time if you're in class watching this, or maybe with someone else that is also programming. Chat with your partner. See, hey, where's the issue? I don't quite see the issue. The issue is very subtle. It's kind of hard to notice without kind of knowing where it went wrong. And the hard part about this entire program is the fact that it's not popping up with an error. Because the program, for all it knows, it's doing the program correctly. The issue is right here, this integer. Integers will truncate, and so they kind of they cut things off, and so they say, hey, we're not going to do anything. And so you can actually kind of see that right here, of where if we go pi over 6, which was like 30 degrees, it's not even a full thing. It's never actually increasing. It keeps cutting it off, and then so it's like, okay, we're going to cut it off, cut it off, cut it off, cut it off. And so it's not working. So what we need to do is we need to change this to a float. And if we do that, we have our symbol back. So, like I said, this is one of the hardest things that you can kind of come across. They're one of the hardest kind of aspects to be able to identify because there's nothing wrong with the program. As the program thought, there was nothing wrong with it, but what you saw, it was not right. So that's one of the hardest ones that we got. Now, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking this code right here, and we're going to change it into spirals. And what you're going to want to do is it's going to be that symbol, that kind of shape that I showed you at the very beginning of the video. It's going to be that spiraling pattern, and we're going to use these circles that we draw in order to make that. So, kind of some ways to go about it is change the radius as it runs the for loop. Um, Maybe make that radius a float as well, and do some like division or something like that, and see if you can make it work. Um, maybe you should increase the number of times we go through the for loop so that then we can get that true spiral and it just doesn't stop whenever you kind of go once around. So have it keep going around and around and around for a bit, but have it kind of terminate eventually because you don't want it to like kind of dirty up the edge of your screen. Just kind of play with it a little bit. And you can also always change your angle amount, how much your angle is mounted by. You can change that pretty easily. Just instead of dividing by 6, divide by something else greater than 6. So, like maybe 40 and see what that does. Do it by 100 and see what that does. And it should you should be able to start seeing, hey, this actually makes little things kind of occur. So, what you're going to be doing, bring this up, is start with that radiance code that we just made and make a spiral that fills the screen. It can go off the edges if you want to. Add some color by filling the ellipses or changing the stroke, or do both. Make the colors be random. Um, be sure to comment on all sections of your code, especially the stuff that you're not quite familiar with or that you just learned today. Those are really big things. Again, the idea is in 2 weeks' time, if you come back, will you be able to change things, or will you have to spend some time to try and figure out what does what? So try and make it to the point of where you can just come in and be like, oh, I want to change the color of this. This is where I do that. Finally, make sure you submit your program for my classes. They're going to be submitted as assignment 13.5. Check with your teacher on what they're going to want you to call this. If you forgot how to make that zipped folder, go and check out my zip folder video to show how to zip this correctly. If you don't, it can cause a big headache for your teacher, and I know for me at least, I actually dock my students for not doing this correctly. Um, because it's kind of something that you need to be able to do as a programmer, is like submit your files correctly and not make people spend tons of time just fixing that one little issue. So again, if you don't remember how to do that, go and fix that, or go and check out that video. As for the rest of it, uh, or have a good time, and as always, happy coding.